Hello, I'm going to be talking about how to recognize signs that your child might either be autistic or at least on the spectrum. I'm going to start with children under the age of 2. This is like before they can speak, before they've had their first words. You'll notice neurotypical children will like gesture when they want stuff. They might imitate you, they might try to laugh or something. Like they'll respond with emotions to stuff, whereas an autistic child still might imitate, so they might be on the high function, they might have Asperger's instead, but they're not going to spontaneously smile or make a sound without any sort of input, whether it's you talking or something happening. Like they're not just going to randomly make noise or faces for no reason. You will notice if you have an autistic child, if they are verbal, they'll have a really small set of words that they use often and frequently, and sometimes it doesn't make sense in the context because they don't know the other words for what they're trying to communicate, and that would be really frustrating, I suppose. But I guess you just have to try your best, and it will be really frustrating, but you have to understand it's not their fault, it's not your fault. They're just having trouble communicating across their needs. Often children with autism that are verbal might have sort of nasally voices, or just sort of different. You'll just know that it's just not a voice you're used to hearing if you're, say, if you go to their preschool or kindergarten, and they'll just seem different. I mean, that's not always a case of autism. Again, if it's just different to see a pediatrician, they could have other ideas. They could have a speech impediment or something, and we need to work on that as well. You'll find your autistic child might be difficult to understand. Sometimes they'll like mumble or run several words together, or sometimes they'll just create their own words to sort of, like, it makes sense to them and they know what this thing is, and unless you spend basically all your time with them, you might not know what they're talking about. And yeah, that could be a bit frustrating. So some other signs for maybe a bit older children is they seem disconnected to their loved ones. Like they're not typically going to hug you or come to you for hugs. I mean, there might be cases where they'll want hugs because something's wrong. Like, they're not just going to come hug you because I love you. Like, you know, I've seen lots of kids that just hug their parents because I love you and I'm showing my appreciation for you, but I certainly was not, and I'm not one of those people. Now, another autism or Asperger's might be difficult for some kids to notice is that, you know, they might seem perfectly talkative around the parent that they spend the most time with, or, you know, maybe their siblings. But as soon as there's someone outside that circle, they'll reserve in a little bit. They might not talk to them or look at them or want anything to do with them. I mean, it's a spectrum, obviously. Like, some kids might be able to do that straight away. Some kids might need a few minutes. Some kids might need a few months before they'll interact with this new person. But again, yeah, don't get frustrated. It's not your fault. It's not their fault. That's just the way they are. So you'll notice, not just with babies, but with like older children, up to about, well, there's no real age limit on how old it goes, because it's a spectrum. But you'll notice your children will tend not to smile and react in a joyful manner if something good or nice or funny is happening. Like, they might just sit there unchanged, or they might giggle uncontrollably at something that's really not that funny. That's another thing to look out for. If they are giving emotional responses that are not typical, this is definitely something you need to keep in mind. Now, I think the lack of empathy is a difficult one, because I think it's more about lack of showing empathy. I think that is the difficult part. Like, there might be kids on the spectrum that just do not have empathy. I've worked in several schools and I've not come across any autistic people that don't show it. Like, I mean, they're not going to say they're sorry straight away. They'll just sort of freeze up and maybe look uncomfortable, and I sense that as something's wrong, but I don't know how to approach this. What do I do? They just don't know how to show empathy or to show that they care and they want to help, and they don't know how to help. Another thing to sort of notice when you're with a child or person that you don't usually interact with, they may seem quite indifferent or like they don't care, but they are listening and watching, and they are enjoying your company. They're just not really into staring at human faces or eye contact. I am struggling looking at a camera, which that's basically its eye. Okay, my reason for why I don't like giving eye contact is really weird. I'm gonna say this. It feels like looking into someone's soul, and then if they can see my soul, they can hear my thoughts, and I don't want that. And I know that's not real, but it's just one of those things I can't shake off. Anyway, it could, like, I feel autism and ADD go hand in hand because we have some similar sort of coping mechanisms. Anyway, and autistic children that is in an environment in which they are not safe, or sometimes even at home, sometimes they just won't respond to their name. Why? Maybe sometimes they feel like that's not what their name is supposed to be. Or sometimes they're just stuck in this inner world, which is like amazing. Like, a lot of us are very creative, and our inner worlds are usually pretty rich and exciting, and you know, the real world's kind of not. You'll notice with some autistic children, when they're playing with other autistic children, they sort of play maybe in the same space, but not with them. Like, if you have like Legos out and there's like, I don't know, a handful of kids, you'll notice neurotypical kids will type of, hey, let's try to make a horse or something, and then they'll try to make a horse, and then they'll like build a sort of maybe a town for their people or something. Like, they'll sort of plan and work together, whereas the children with autism is more likely to sort of have their own ideas and not really want to get in. They're less likely to want to join in on what the other children are doing. I mean, sometimes they'll want to, but it doesn't happen quite often. I think in like kindergarten, because the autistic kid is often pushed aside, by the time they've reached primary school, they often don't want to seek other children. They don't want to. I mean, like, a lot of children will be happy if they're included, but I don't know. It's just a different experience, and you can't understand it. Like, teachers can't get the full picture of a child on the spectrum. Parents can't get a full view of the child. Like, unless the child is homeschooled, you won't know exactly what your kid is going through, unless it's like severe, unless it's like they're constantly stimming and holding their ears and flapping and like tantruming. If they're like that's severely autistic, I guess obviously you know. Again, please seek help from a pediatrician. They might recommend a psychologist, a family therapist. They'll help. There's help out there. Don't try to do this on your own. You can't do this on your own unless you have like studied it like properly with it, like a TAFE certificate or something. Unless you've actually studied how to manage autistic children. Like, this video might be a great thing of things to keep in mind of, but it's not what, like, no two autistic children are the same. This is the thing. Like, these are just ways of kind of things that you should keep in mind that might be happening to your children, and think, okay, maybe I should get help. Yeah, by the age of 4, you'll notice whether your child has a preference for non-verbal communication. So they might be able to like talk, but they might prefer to draw you a letter or a picture, or attempt to write a letter. Or they're more likely to use gestures or point, or like, come with me, I want to show you a thing. Yeah. definitely by age 4, if your child is not using, you know, simple sentences to communicate with you all the time, that's another thing you need to be wary about. Now, once they've hit school, like grade prep, if they're having difficulty understanding tasks that are asked in a figurative way or a colloquial way, they're gonna have a hard time. You need to know, you need to be direct, okay? I'm gonna give an example. My example is, if you want your autistic child to fill these 2 jugs with water, you need to say this: can you fill these 2 jugs with water just so it reaches the line right here, so it's not too full? Tell them exactly how you want that jug to be filled. Please fill this jug with cold water. Yes, every detail needs to be said. You can't just say, can you go do these jugs? Do what with them? Do you want me to take them? Where do I put them? Do you want me to wash them? Is there a special soap I need to use? So, a lot of the things I've said can also apply to autistic adults. You need to be clear and direct with directions. So when you are aware that you're working with an autistic adult, I mean, don't speak down to them. They're not an idiot. Okay, they don't have like another neurological thing. They're not like a child living in an adult's body. No, I mean, there might be some aspect of their life but not. But generally, autistic people are quite bright. I mean, we have above average IQs a lot of the time. You will find low IQ autistics that require like full-time help and stuff. I don't have experience in that. I can't really talk about that. I don't know what their experience is like. For a high-functioning autistic like myself, also known as someone with Asperger's, yes, I need clear, exact directions. It is probably best to show me exactly, step by step of what you need done. I mean, just because, you know, maybe other people have done it, you just being able to show them they can do it. I need it broken down. There's no ifs or buts about it. And yeah, I am going to be a bit slower than others in the workplace because I need that bit of mental process time to think, okay, here's a bunch of tasks that I need to do. Which one is the most important? Which task do I definitely have to do because the supervisor said this has to be done at some point by today? Can you please make sure it's done before 9 PM, for example, right? I have so yeah, clear, direct. Do not talk down to your autistic children. Talk to them as if they are just the same age. If they're an 8-year-old with autism, they are still an 8-year-old child. Don't treat them like a 3-year-old. They understand you. They understand a lot more than you know. They're not stupid. Okay? Just treat them normally and it'll be fine. And in my next video, I'm going to probably go into a bit more detail on how to treat an adult with Asperger's. and maybe share a bit of my experiences there too. This is going to take several hours to upload. Thanks for listening.